In the film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Milos Forman, there are 5 very important sequences. The first would be when McMurphy is first seen speaking with another man about whether or not he thinks he's insane. He attempts to convince him and is sent on probationary terms to a mental institution where he believes he will have more freedom than in prison. This scene is extremely important because it shows why McMurphy is in a mental hospital and how he thinks it will be better than jail. The second is when McMurphy makes a bet on whether he will be able to pull a marble water treatment control panel out of the floor so he can throw it through a window and get out. He fails, obviously, but makes a bitter remark about how at least he tried. This could easily be seen as the first time he gets through to the other inmates about standing up for themselves, or at the very least trying. The third occurs when the patients are relaxing in the asylum's pool area and McMurphy discovers that he won't be released at the end of his term as he originally thought. This is the point where he is galvanized into coming up with an escape plan, and it's crucial to the rest of the plot. The fourth is when McMurphy discovers that the chief was faking being deaf when the two are waiting for their electroshock sessions. The chief verbally says, "I like juicy fruit," after being offered the gun by McMurphy, and he is delighted to know this. He resolves to take the chief with him when he escapes. The fifth most important scene comes after Nurse Ratched discovers her patients hung over and asleep, scattered throughout the hospital. It is when a nurse's scream is heard and Billy's corpse is found after he committed suicide with a sharp piece of glass. This sudden death angers McMurphy so much he tries to strangle Nurse Ratched to death, as he believes it is completely her fault. The result of this is a frontal lobotomy, and when she finds out about it, he decides to escape on his own, inspired by McMurphy from before. This film is considered to be a psychological drama because it contains elements of different psychiatric disorders and their effects on the sequences of the film. If certain characters hadn't had certain disorders or problems, the film would have progressed much differently. Also, the main idea in the film is that Nurse Ratched has cowed these men into submission using psychological techniques to instill the idea of her superiority, and only the newcomer McMurphy is willing to go against her, until he is lobotomized, at which point he becomes a vegetable. The topic of this film could be considered to be oppression and the fight against it. Those who have been under the oppressing head nurse too long don't have the will to fight against her until McMurphy shows up. An outsider manages to fight against the oppressor, Nurse Ratched, long enough to show the others that they too can make their voices heard over this single, dictator-like woman. But before action can be taken, McMurphy is fully oppressed through a frontal lobotomy. However, his constant rebellion inspires Chief, an older inmate, to also rebel against the oppressor by escaping the hospital through a window. I enjoyed this film mostly because of the Chief. He is a surprisingly complex character, and the facets of his personality are revealed throughout the film. He pretends to be deaf because he does not want to socialize. He willingly entered the asylum because he was ostracized outside of it because of his huge size. And even with McMurphy lobotomized and technically dead, he still wanted to be free with his new friend, and freed him through death by smothering him with a pillow, then escaping himself through the window. The fact that he pulled the marble water treatment control panel out of the floor and threw it out the window to escape is almost like a salute to McMurphy's previous rebellion, almost like Chief was fulfilling his final wishes. Overall, I enjoyed watching this film greatly, and could understand both Nurse Ratched and her point of view, as well as those of the inmates who are oppressed by her.